your pony knowledge by. Oh, better. I got a place where winning ain't tough to do. You wanna be cool, stable do. Your horse racing fantasy come true. But no, stable do.
Download the Stable Duel app and play today.
Oh, it's time for some weekend racing. It's time for this weekend in Stable Duel. Shout out to Joey Cleveland. Merry Christmas, Joey. Hope you're doing well there. The man who always leads us into this show with the soothing sounds as we get ready to get you all set up for some Friday and Saturday racing. I'm all decked out in holiday garb for the next few weeks. We've got Matt DeSantis. We've got the sniper Barry Spears. And we've got some racing fellas at Gulfstream and at Remington Park that we're going to be focusing in on this weekend. Barry, it's that time of the year where we're going to be really spending a lot of time in your neck of the woods with Gulfstream Park as a major focus for Stable Duel, and really as a major focus is like one of the central parts of the racing world for the next 4 months or so between now and, like Florida Derby time.
Yeah, that sounds about right. From basically like January 1st through April.
Yep.
It's pretty relevant, but it's funny because people are trying to write off Gulfstream as a place to be in the winter, and then it turns out that they're the only one that has turf. So
yeah, right now you look around, it's like, where's the grass going? And we don't even know if today they'll be running on the turf with the weather, but at least they've had that grass course open back up, which is not the case for some of the other tracks. Track like Fairgrounds, I don't think they're going to be on the turf until the 26th, which is opening day at Santa Anita. So hopefully that'll be a big day where a lot of different tracks have some options. Matt, you said final day of work for a little while. So now you get to play for a little bit and have some fun and have a nice holiday, spend some time with the family. How's everything going for you?
Everything's going great. Barry, before we got started, said it was cold down in Florida. It's 36 degrees here in Virginia, so I have a feeling it's not that cold. I know what Florida. I lived in Florida for 7 years. I know what cold means down in Florida.
68. So, it's 68. Sorry.
68, exactly.
70 is cold for me.
I know.
I actually forgot to turn my space heater off. So if you actually hear it in the background underneath, it's because at 48, I was doing the same thing over here with getting a little chilly. So
but, things are good, man. It's going to be great. I mean, I'm excited about this weekend's card. Remington Park's a lot of fun. I always get excited.
I love when Remington. It's not like Remington's a small track, but I love when some of the premier tracks that everybody plays every weekend has a big day. It's fun. It's fun to see them get a chance to really shine. It's fun when you can hear and see a lot of people that maybe not play that track normally are talking about playing that track and handicapping the races there. So I look forward to Springboard Mile Day, and it's one of the days I play Remington Park each and every year. Really good racing there tonight, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute as we give you a few horses for Saturday. But before we get to Saturday, let's start on Friday, and we're looking at Gulfstream Park. We're always looking at the daily racing form for the past performances. So nice with the formulator is the past performances that I always pull up here because it's so easy to navigate around. One click to a chart, one click to a race replay. Let's dive on in. I'm looking today at Gulfstream in races 1, 3, 7, and 8, and I can see that Matt has races 5 and 7, and that the sniper has races 3, 7, and 9. So I'll kick us off in race number 1 today. And again, like we said, we're not exactly sure they're going to be on the grass or not. We'll keep an eye on it. But if they are, this is a horse and a race that I would almost never play. And what's funny, there are probably 2 horses this weekend that are not my style of horses, but I really do think they're in a good spot. And it's sort of like by process of elimination, I think I like them and the value that they present in the particular spot. That's the case for Sand Dancer here. I think a lot of people might look initially and just see that he's 0 for 15 at Gulfstream on the turf and then just kind of pass right by. But he's run well. He still hit the board in 5 of those races. And when you dive in, every single one of them has been against better. Every one of those races that we're judging him for is against tougher. The only time that he dropped down to this level, which was on the synthetic, he won. So I'm having a tough time like saying, this horse is not like a win machine, because if I'm running against better athletes, I'm never going to beat them. You can call me not a win machine, but when you're just facing competition that's a little bit better, it doesn't matter what happens. You can get the trip, you cannot. I just think this is such a better spot for Sandancer. And let's look at his pattern a little bit. So he raced in February, then he's off for 5 months. Then he comes back in July, and then he's off for like another 3+ months. Then he shows up in November, and he makes a middle move. He gets right into the race. Now he's going to be able to put 2 starts together for the first time in a while. He gets back to the turf, which is a major positive, and he's at a level that just seems to fit. This race on the grass back in February, on February the 24th, it's by a horse named Lamplighter Jack, who won 4 races in a row and is really sharp. Like, look at the year this horse had. He's a 10-time winner in 23 starts. He won 5 races in 2022. Mo Hawk came back to win his next start coming out of that race. So, yeah, this isn't a horse that I think a lot of people are going to look at and want to gravitate towards either. And honestly, even if he doesn't win, which I think he has a very good chance of doing, in Stable Duel, he's a horse who always shows up, and at 6-1 will only cost us $5,000 in our Stable Duel lineup. Sandancer, for me, back to the turf, first time at this low level on the turf. Let's give Sandancer a look in here, the number 3, who is 6-1 to kick things off at Gulfstream Park for Friday. So I will head to the 3rd race, and it looks like Matt's going to be in the 5th and the 7th. Gulfstream, Barry will be in the 3rd also. So Barry, as we move to race number 3, why don't you talk to us about who you're looking at in this one?
Oh, you're muted, Barry.
My stupid headphones aren't charged up fully. Yeah, I thought this was a kind of an interesting race. You know, it's maiden special weight going a mile on the main track, and you have a bunch of first-time starters in here from, you know, kind of decent outfits. You have you know, a Safi horse who's probably going to get bet with IRAD first time out in the 3-run Corey Run. Eventful Antonio Sano barn, who has some good works in tow, and you got, you know, Jack Sisterson, and, you know, nothing really jumped off the page at me from any of these horses. You know, even the Brian Litch horse, who had a slow start the first out, came flying home with Adam Beschidza at Churchill, and then he comes over to Gulfstream, and, you know, I don't know. It just doesn't feel right to me, a lot of this race. So I'm going to take number 7, Immense Faith, who coincidentally didn't run all that bad first time out from the rail. And I think the rail is the key. You know, sometimes horses, you know, they get intimidated or what have you, and first time out, and they just don't run their best race. You know, usually you have to pop out of the gate and just fly in front of everybody to kind of win from the rail.
So we're watching the race. You have Immense Faith is the one, like you said, he had the rail in this race that we're watching. The 4 Big Data is also in this race, and I think they're both extremely live in here.
Yeah, absolutely.
The 4 Big Data is my play in here, so we'll be able to watch both of them at the same time. And you're 100% right. Big Data was the 4 in this race, so Big Data was a little bit slow and was towards the back, but you could see him start to recover. And then Barry's horse, the 1, he just gets kind of forced because of where he's drawn. Like, if the 1 was sitting in that same exact spot, but just drawn to the outside, you'd love where
a lot better, right?
Like, you'd love the trip. But now, right where your 1 is,
I think the horse would have loved the trip too. You see him kind of
right. He just
hanging
have
out there, and he's just kind of climbing, and he didn't like it on the inside. It was pretty evident. And Big Data, you know, look, he's making a wide move at 30-1. You know, there's you know, it's like the tale of two cities here, and depending on what you like, and for me, the difference was the morning line odds.
Yeah,
I mean, there's no way I would think that Immense Faith should be 15-1. He didn't.
The difference between the 2 would definitely not be
correct. And you know, second time out, he had, you know, a workout since. 15-1 seems a little bit high, but you know, you're going to have horses in this race that are going to take money. So he's not going to be, you know, he's probably going to be one of the longer shots in this race. He might not be the longest shot, but there's really not much to grab on here. And if somebody just happens to freak and go crazy, then, that's that. A horse will probably get bet down would do that. So I'm willing to give the 7 a shot here, especially from a stable dual perspective. You don't have to spend up in a race that could be potentially wide open.
And one of the things that I just want to point out in that, for me, as someone who tries to like pride myself on being a gambler that's about value in everything, like for example, when I play a football game, like I can handicap a game, think that one team is going to beat the other team. But if I missed the number, like if the game opened up at 6.5 and now it's moved to 7.5, I'm not going to bet it, even if it's just 1 point, because that's a key number that it moves through, that 7, right? So you always got to be smart about the value. I get worried when I play a horse like the 4 myself that was 30-1 in their debut, and now I'm going to come back and play him at like 5-1, right? That's something just that I get like, I don't know if I love that. Now, big data at 5 or 6-1 isn't 5-2. So I still feel like okay about the value of this horse making their second start, but value is a great point. And like Barry's horse, for example, was 15-1 or was 12-1 in the debut. He'll probably be in that 10, 12-1-ish range again. And it's not as if you missed a bunch of value early on with the horse like Big Data. So intriguing third race today with a couple different options. And like always, whenever we attack one race, even if we don't like the same horse, we're attacking it because it feels like it's a wide open race and there are plenty of options there. So my next 2 are in the 7th and the 8th. That means Matt is going to take us for a ride in race number 5. Matty, we head over to the synthetic, and your 12-5 non-winners of 2. Talk to us about this one.
Yeah, so first of all, there's already a notable scratch. The 2 Red Hurricane, which was the morning line favorite at 5-2, is actually scratched out of this race. So that I think opens things up even more than it already had been. But I really have my eye on
and
the
Matt,
numbers.
can we just while you're pointing that out, if some of the times when we're talking about stuff on this show, we're talking about it so early that we don't exactly know the horses that scratch in these races. But like right now, this is absolutely a race that, I mean, everyone's probably going to play this race because there are only 9 races and you almost have to play every one. Yeah. But if there's ever a scratch in a race where one of the favorites gets scratched, you have to go attack that race.
Automatic play.
And you have to just take advantage of it, knowing that every other price of these horses is going to come down. And that's a really nice way for you to kind of start and set your lineup up.
Absolutely. No, I love going after a race because there's kind of 2 strategies. One is you look at a race where the favorite scratched, and now you can go to that second favorite that maybe you kind of like, but was still maybe a little expensive, but you can all of a sudden get like a 4-1 horse at $7,000 that's going to go off at like even money because there's nobody else in the field. Or what I like to do is I just like to go more inexpensive in these races. I like to go, look through those 6-1 or higher horses because now suddenly you're going to get really good value. So that's what I did here. I actually went to the number 7 horse, No Man Left Behind. This is a horse that's 6-1 on the morning line. And this is a horse that just turns in really honest performances. 6 for 8 in the money at this distance with 1 win and 3 second places. Going long is clearly preferable. You look the last 2 times out were those 5.5 furlong sprints on the synthetic. Not terrible performances, but not great. If you go back and look at those races, November 4th and October 2nd, those are the races that I want this horse to run back to. This is when this horse was running at this level, 12.5 claimers, running at this distance, 1.70 miles, 1.16 and having success, running second both times. And so I just think this is a horse that, like I said, for the money at 6-1, I just think is kind of fits in this particular spot. The speed figures are right on, especially when stretching out on the synthetic. So especially now with the scratch of the 2, I just see this race being a lot more wide open.
This horse will probably be 4-1 now.
Oh yeah, 4-1, 3-1. Yeah, this horse is going to take money for sure. And so in Stable Duel, you can lock this horse in for only $5,000, which is your average cost per horse. And like I said, really take advantage of that scratch of the 2 in this race. But I just think this is a horse that just isn't going to run a bad race in the spot. So if you're playing stable duels, it's a horse that's going to get you positive points. And honestly, with the scratch of the 2, I feel a lot better about placing a little bit of a win bet with this horse as well, because I think this horse has the ability to get it done. And I think this race actually should set up pretty nicely, because the 6 is going to be, I don't want to say cheap speed, but the 6 is going to be kind of early speed, because this is a sprint horse that's stretching out for the first time. It's going to fade late in all likelihood, but outside of that, there's really no other speed. And so the 7 should be able to sit a pretty nice trip, kind of forwardly placed, but not too sucked up into things. And I just like the way this race shapes up for it. And at 6-1, like the value.
I mean, and I got to do it one time. Woo!
I teed you up there, Gio.
It was just so easy for the Nature Boy. He's styling and profiling, wheeling and dealing, jet flying. Shout out to the Nate. Ric
The
Flair.
best.
I love that Ric Flair is like the best. Like he has no loyalty to any like teams anywhere ever, because you always see Ric Flair like giving a speech before someone like has a big game. He's in the locker room, and he'll always be wearing whatever jersey it is. It's like if you give him $100 and a warm meal, he will be there wearing your jersey, wooing all over the place in the videos, like just trying to kiss any girl that he can. Like he'll love it.
And I love that he's one of the few. I feel like he's one of the few figures who now, God, what is he, Gino? I mean, he's in his 70s.
70 plus, 70.
Yeah, 70 plus. Yeah. He's one of the few figures that is still iconic to like 18 to 21-year-olds.
Yes.
Like kids, because of that speech of limousine riding, jet flying, wheeling, dealing, son of a gun. I mean, you still see guys in the locker room imitating that Ric Flair speech
in rap songs all the time.
Yeah.
Ric Flair gets referenced, which is awesome.
It's awesome. Yeah. It's just, I mean, I certainly would not have guessed that when I was watching Starcade 85 when I was 5 years old. Like, that this guy's going to be a legendary figure in pop culture.
And what's so funny about Ric Flair in general is that most of his career was spent being a bad guy, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so for the most of a lot of his career, he would come to your town and everybody would be booing him and root against him. He was the guy that you love to hate. But then it's like anything. When you're so good at your role, we just become, we love you. We respect you. It's like you become such a good bad guy that the people just don't even want to boo you anymore. That they're just like, nah, we got to cheer this guy because he's just so good at playing his part. I love greatness, whatever industry it is. It doesn't matter. There's a woman here that works at a place called Philippe's in Los Angeles, which is like a very well-known French dip, like sandwich place. She's the greatest waitress in the world. The most fantastic. And she's not really a waitress. She's like the woman that works at the counter.
Yeah.
But this woman is dealing with like 500 things at every moment. And she's got it down to like this science. She's like an absolute machine. And you're watching her and like nobody else could do what she's doing. Like if you took her out of that role and put her back in there, and I just watch her sometimes when I'm in there in line, and it's just amazing. You can actually like see people like watch, and she's just got it all flow. It's like an orchestra that she's directing, and she's got this going this, and she's telling the cooks this and that's no, they didn't get their chips yet. Boom. And it's just unbelievable. So I love greatness, and that's what's amazing. We went from Nature Boy to Philippe's, and that's a tangent that we get to as we continue along on our Friday Gulfstream Park. Let's get to, I believe, race number 7 for our next play. As
I think we're all in it.
Everybody's got one in race number 7. Okay, Barry, you start us off. Tell us who you're looking at in this 7th race.
Yeah, it's a nice 50,000 non-winners of 2 going 6 on the main. And it I had this race kind of held me up a little bit. Usually I'm not so, I don't spend a lot of time analyzing races because I kind of just skip. I cut to the chase. Yeah, I cut to the chase, and horses that I give the once over, I look through the past performances and I'll just eliminate right off the top with no hesitation. Don't even look at them. I made my decision and that's that. This one I had to look at a little bit more because there's a lot going on here. But I ended up on number 2, One America.
There we go.
Same.
Oh wow.
Oh, no. There's
Wow,
just not that much
it's,
speed in here, right? There's a lot
right,
of
and
pressure.
that's what I was gonna say, and I was kind of like, you look at the past performance and you think Bird Wildcat, maybe that horse has speed. I don't know,
Yeah, I don't
but it doesn't look like they really want the
Doesn't look
lead.
like that horse. Yeah, I don't think that horse has nearly as
know.
much speed.
Same thing
And,
with
Yeah.
and
Prince
the
of
one at the
Iron.
five,
Doesn't
the
want it.
five kind of just got the lead in the slop at Thistledown.
Yeah,
And they
you
went
can't trust that.
47-2 to the half mile there. Like they weren't 47, like they weren't flying at all. He feels sort of just kind of like
The fastest
know,
horse.
you start
He's gonna get the lead.
eliminating, and he's on the lead, and then you start going through like his recent form. And since he's changed barns, he runs in this race on the turf at Laurel, and it's a pretty good fourth. It's actually better than it looks. It's in the field of 11, and he comes running late. Then he comes back at Laurel on the dirt, and he's right on the lead, showing sprint speed, going 6 furlongs on the dirt. He comes back again in the 50 starter allowance at Monmouth, going long. He's on the lead. He runs really well that day. He finished second. He's only beaten 3/4 of a length. Then in that Pimlico race, guys, that was a tough race because I'm going to give out Barberini as a horse I like tomorrow
Yeah.
when we talk about Gulfstream Park.
Yeah.
And this horse is running in a stakes race. Barberini has won 3 in a row. Look how sharp this horse is. He's only run one bad race in his entire career, and that was his first race. Barberini has like 8 straight good races. There were 3 next out winners coming out of this race. Even the horse Bob Marco, who was 10th, came back to win a first level allowance at Delaware in a field of 8. It wasn't even like a small, short field that he comes back and wins. Sock it to me, sock it to me, sock it to me, sock it to me, gets the win at Presque Isle coming out of that race. So the race came back live. Matt, talk to us a little bit about One America.
One America. Yeah, 6-1 on the morning line, only going to cost you $5,000. As you guys were saying, I mean, this horse appears to be the only speed in a sprint race, which again, like I'll gladly take lone speed in a sprint race if you're going to give me 6-1. I also think this is a trainer that has a pretty good reputation coming back from the layoff, 23% winning rate, coming back from, a moderate but not too long of a layoff, a little over 2 months. And so, yeah, it just made a lot of sense. The fact that this horse broke its maiden going this distance on this surface, because this horse also kind of goes between turf and dirt sometimes. Just thought that there was a lot of things to like there. And one of the things I look at, kind of like Barry, very quickly scanning over a race, I look at those Timeform US pace or indicators.
Absolutely. They're a very good.
It's a great quick
resource.
hand. Yeah, it's a great shorthand to just kind of get a quick snapshot of the pace. And there's quite literally nobody within 20 points of him in terms of early speed and the rest of the field. So when you're looking through this, you're just like, well, this horse is clearly going to have the lead. And not only that, this horse is probably not even going to be pressed on the lead. So there's just not really any pressure. And you just kind of look at the race shape, the fact that this horse coming off a little bit of a break, Gino, you always talk about this, horse is going to feel good, feel fresh, really good, want to get out there. But here's the thing, this horse is capable of running longer. This horse can go a mile and a 16.
Fitness shouldn't be an issue.
Exactly. Fitness, this horse is not going to fade late, that last half furlong or something like that. I just think this horse makes all the sense in the world. At 6-1, I'll gladly play One America.
And that's like what we're doing right there is what I think you're supposed to do before you prepare to handicap a race or handicap a game or anything. And maybe you do it in your own head or writing it out on a piece of paper, or maybe you actually have a friend like me and Matt and Barry are just doing like a sounding board where you want to play devil's advocate before you invest in a horse. Okay, how does this horse win? But also, how does this horse lose? Right? What could happen to make this race not go the way I'm seeing it? But we counter each other right there. But like, hey, there's no other speed in this race, right? Like, who is the horse to push him? Sure, the horse could have a bad start and then he's not on the lead, right? But if he gets out of the gate, like, who is even the horse that pushes this horse? No, okay, he's on the lead, check. He's in really nice form, check. Just like Matt said, he's fresh, but it's not like he's a horse who's only got a bunch of 5 and 5 furlong success, and now he's got to go longer off the bench. So you got to play that little game. Right? When you're figuring out who you like, you ask those questions and you answer them, or maybe you can't answer them. And for the ones that you can't answer, that's okay. But value better be built into that, right? Like every time you can't answer a question, they better be another 2 points higher on the morning line if you can't answer that,
Exactly.
right? Oh, they may
Exactly.
not get okay. Well, they're 10-1, so that's fine. You know, that's sort of the dance that you should be doing here. One America. Let's see if we can get the law professor lock of the week home. All three of us on the deuce. One America. And as we talk about Gulfstream for Friday, there's also a Tampa, a Hawthorne, and a Laurel game for Friday. If you're a fan of Stable Duel, if you want to play some of these contests, if you're looking at one of those tracks, they also have options for you. And then for Saturday, it's Gulfstream with two different options, Remington and Tampa. So we'll get into some Gulfstream and some Remington for Saturday in just a minute. But I have one more at Gulfstream for Friday, and I think Barry does as well. Mine comes in race number 8, and then we'll finish up in race number 9 with Barry. So in the 8th race, this one is a mile on the turf in here. I think this horse is kind of sneaky if they're able to run on the grass. The number 1 Classic Vinyl. Now, this is a horse for Graham Motion, who has raced twice. In both of the races, they were on a muddy track. So when we're looking at this horse's speed figures, they're low. Like, they're not high speed figures. That really doesn't bother me at all, because this is a grass race now.
Mm-hmm.
And so these horses' first 2 races in her 2-year-old season were both on off racetracks that she probably didn't really relish. In fact, in her debut, I think she won more kind of in spite of the track than necessarily loving the track. She just kind of got out close, was sitting, and was probably better than a lot of that field. And even though she didn't have like a monster speed figure in winning that race, what I like is that the 2nd place finisher came right back to win a maiden special weight. The 3rd place finisher came right back to win a maiden claimer at Pimlico. So I know that race has come back alive already. Then in her 2nd start, well, they tried Stakes Company, and she's just in a little bit too tough. Let's look at her pedigree. What's nice is that with one click at Formulator, we can take a look at the pedigree. So her dam was a 3-time winner on the turf. It feels like turf might be the place for her. We look at her siblings. Altamira on the grass, raced 3 times. 2 of them were victories. 1 of them was a stakes win at Laurel. So, upgrade me, turf winner. Now, all of a sudden, we expect this horse to improve on the turf because she has 2 siblings that ran on the grass. They both won on it. Her dam won on the turf. And Graham Motion, who is a fantastic turf conditioner, puts her in this spot right here. And I think because of these speed figures being a little bit low, people aren't going to gravitate towards her and think of her as this really talented filly. But honestly, I can understand why her figures aren't very low or aren't very high. She ran on 2 muddy racetracks and probably didn't really relish it. I think she will enjoy the turf here, and I'm giving her a shot. Classic Vinyl.
I will say this about Graham Motion. To your point, I like this play a lot, Gino. And I will say Graham Motion is one of those trainers that he doesn't place horses in races for no reason. Like
No.
he's exceptionally good at placing horses, I think, and like putting his horses in the best position to succeed. And he's a trainer that I just really trust. And there are times where I'm like, that's interesting that Graham put this horse in that race, and then the horse just runs lights out. And it's like, oh, he knew exactly what he was doing. I mean, obviously he's a really great trainer, but it's one of those where I really trust him when he puts horses in certain spots, especially like stepping up or switching surfaces or things like that. And I'm like, okay, he knows what he's doing here. And so at 12-1, I'll always take a Graham Motion horse a shot there. I like that play a lot.
Classic Vinyl is the one, 12-1. So for us in our Stable Duel lineup, that will only cost us $750 as we build our lineup. The format is just like if you play any DFS, any sort of like DraftKings, where you have a salary cap and you have to do that massage while you're putting your lineup together. You can't just use chalk all the way through. Let's finish up in the 9th with the sniper, my man. It is Bail Out Barry. Talk to us about how you're going to bail it out in the 9th race.
Yeah, this is there's a couple of scratches here. The 1 and the 2 are scratched, and it changed a lot for me anyway, because I was originally on the 2. But the other horse I did like in here, who actually may or may not look better, but we'll see. But what is this race? It's a condition claimer 12-5 non-winners of non-winners of 3, going 7 on the main. And I took number 5, Hanita's Empire. Now, this is an interesting horse. It hasn't really run all that spectacular, but the last 2 races are really, really key for me. So this horse comes off a layoff from August 27th to November 8th and runs a comparable speed figure, a buyer that was, in August 27th, ran a decent race at this same level and got a 69. Off for, about 3 months, comes back and runs a 64. To me, that's key. I see horses do this all the time where they come back off of a semi, lengthy layoff and run a number that's similar to what they were running before they went on the break. When they come back, that usually means they may have another jump up, especially with younger horses. Like,
it's like the progression, right?
Correct. Yeah.
You don't want them to have a huge figure because then they bounce. You don't want them to have a low figure because then it's like, they're the same horse. You want to see that it's close to where they were.
Exactly. And that's exactly what happened. That's in the neighborhood. Then for whatever reason, probably because they couldn't get a race to fill or something, they run him on the synthetic, and it just seems like he just didn't want it. Now was claimed out of that race by Kent Sweezy, goes back to the main track, stretching out slightly, getting Top Rider in Luis Saez. If that doesn't tell you this horse is probably live, I don't know what does. Whether he wins or not is another story, but at 6-1 on the line, I think this horse probably will get bet, but you can lock in at Stable Duel at the 6-1 price and be sitting on a really live horse.
Number 5 at 6-1, who's, as Barry said, now with the scratches will get bet, but this is a nice one to lock in Stable Duel when you're playing your lineups, because you can lock in at that 6-1 price when you put your lineups together. So there's a look at Friday. Let's turn the page on over to Saturday. Let's start with Gulfstream Park, and then we'll move to Remington Park. So for Saturday, Matt will be looking at Gulfstream races 5, 8, and 10. Barry has races 7 and 10. And I'll be towards the back at races 9, 10, and 11. So, Matt, you start us off on Friday or on Saturday at Gulfstream Park. I believe you're in the 5th. Oh, I think you're muted, Matty.
Yep. Sorry about that. Thank you.
No worries.
And so, the 5th race is we're going to go to the synthetic. We're going to go to the Tapeta. The hell with this new turf course. I want to keep rating and playing on the Tapeta because I make money on that surface. And so we're going to go to, it's a maiden claimer 12.5, a mile and 70. And there are kind of 2 horses I'm interested in, but one in particular that I'll focus in on, which is the number 2, Capture the Laughter, at 6-1 on the morning line. This horse is going to cost you that average Stable Duel price we always talk about $5,000. This horse that really, I think, showed some nice progression from race 1 to race 2. First time out was a 5.5 furlong sprint on the synthetic, and kind of, was fine, but then got stretched out the second time out, went to this mile and a 70 distance. The speed figures remain the same, ran a 52 buyers both times. The difference is the placement. Second time out, same level, maiden 16, and ran a strong second in a 7-horse field that next time out. So clearly seemed to like this distance a little bit. The other thing that's interesting to me is Aubrey Mara is a trainer who earlier this year was really firing off a lot of winners, and you'll see currently at Gulfstream 0 for 25. But if you notice, 7 seconds, 6 thirds, 13 for 25 in the money. I mean, it's rare to see a trainer that's, batting 0 for in terms of winning, but that's over 50% in the money. So she's clearly getting her horses ready. I mean, she's sending out strong runners.
It's not sustainable in that the regression, it's going to regress in the positive. That
exactly.
If that many of your horses are firing and finishing in the top 3 by accident, they're going to win more, right? You're just going to fall into a couple more wins.
Yeah, you can't sustain finishing second and third 50% of the time. I mean, and you're right in a positive way. Like, you're going to get more winners coming out of that. And so I just think this horse makes a lot of sense. This horse, has a little bit of speed. I think that was one of the things that we saw, especially at this distance, from that first to second time out. in that 5.5 furlong sprint. Obviously doesn't have sprinter speed, but did have speed to be forwardly placed going a mile 70. So I always like to see that. Keeps the same jockey on from that last time out. And also, slight step down, you could say, in class, going from a maiden 16 to a maiden 12.5. So I think it's 6-1, Capture the Laughter makes a lot of sense. And the other thing I'll say is, and this is an angle I always like to play, especially down at Gulfstream, is the horse works out on the Tapeta. And that's not something that you see from every horse. And so I always like to see horses that work out on that surface, just getting more and more comfortable with it. And I will say, I'll just give a shout out to the 3 as well, Ready, Seek, Go, which is a horse that's coming off a long layoff, and for a trainer that doesn't really typically get him cranked up. But if you look, that last workout was on the synthetic, and it was a blazing 5 furlong work. And so I saw that, and my eyes kind of lit up a little bit, but I don't think I can kind of go there with a recommendation this week, just because I think off the layoff, I'm not so sure going a mile 70, but really like the 2 in this spot and think this will be a good investment for you on Stable Duel.
Is on Saturday. What are we talking?
One thing you might want to pay attention to, especially with the cooler weather, with the quotations cooler up in down in at Gulfstream, is how the Tapeta is going to play, because from what I've been seeing, when it rains and when the weather is cooler, the track gets tighter, and you'll see horses up closer to the pace winning a lot more than they should. Almost, it tightens up, and then when it gets
warm
hot,
weather, it loosens up,
and
the horses all like down the middle of the track can run. Well, you can kind of win all over. It just kind of makes it a little bit more fair, right, for the horses coming, because the same thing happened at Del Mar because of the weather, like it was being by the beach when Del Mar had the synthetic. Honestly, it sort of happens with Del Mar right now, even when it doesn't have the synthetic, because it's so close to the beach with the cloud cover, the way that the track will play. But that's a really good point. Also, Barry, like I remember seeing that play out in Del Mar all the time. Like it's funny, like, and you could see the style of the synthetic that they had for a while. You could actually see it when it was packed versus when it was like loosened up in the track. Like the style of the track would just be like loose versus like, wow. Like if you took a step on it, it was like really, really hard. You were almost walking on like rubber, when you, so nice point from the sniper there about how the weather may play out on the synthetic. We're talking about race number 5 there at Gulfstream Park, but I believe we're going to head to the 7th now, because I think you both have a play in race number 7. So Maddie, why don't you talk to us about who you're looking at in the 7th at Gulfstream Park?
Actually, just Barry does. I'm in race 8.
You're in race 8. Okay. So Barry, you have race 7. This is a 7 furlong on the dirt here. Talk to us about this one.
Yeah, it's a $16,000 optional claimer, 7 on the main. This is a really interesting race from a value standpoint, because the field is kind of a little all over the place. But I ended up on the old pro, number 6, Joe DiBaggio.
Oh, great.
It's one of the best names.
On Nation 2.
But looking at this horse's past performances, if you just put a line through the October 16th synthetic try, this picture becomes a lot more clear of what's going on here. And I think they got away with one and tried to push the envelope, and then they got caught with their hand in the cookie jar, and this horse got claimed last time.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go
trying to sneak one by there.
Right.
Yeah.
You see how they won. They ran good, in an open $8,000 claimer, then went on the synthetic, which, I don't understand why they just tried. I guess there was nothing that filled. I would have waited.
It's funny. It's almost, and again, this is pure speculation. It's almost like you run that race to throw people off your scent before you come back and drop the horse in.
I thought that.
Almost. And I don't know, but like the cynic in me looks at that and thinks
you have to think that, because look at where the horse is now off the claim, because that race, the synthetic, then they dropped down all the way down to 62.5. And the horse wins easily. So, and then gets claimed, ends up going back up
Yeah.
into the level where they kind of started. And you see this horse runs competitively at this level back on April 16th, December 30th last year. I think this horse merits a really good
And-
shot. 8-1. You probably get a pretty decent price here because
Yeah.
there's some horses like the other thing about the pace scenario, which I'll mention, is the horse on the inside tone feeling. For whatever reason, anytime this horse is on the inside, runs excellent.
Seems to like
And
it
you'll
down
see
there.
that, October 15th at
Yeah.
34-1, just goes to the lead and wins. I've seen this horse every time the horse runs on the inside, he runs.
Yeah.
So I want that horse to engage C Trident, who's 7-5, who kind of doesn't even fit here. And it's kind of one of those, why is this horse here? I think that, it just doesn't make any sense to me for this horse to be at this level when there's probably a better spot, or a spot that will be more expensive, pay more money than this one. So I don't know. It just seems a little fishy there on the 7-5. I'm going to go with Joe DiBaggio and try to bail out there.
Isn't it funny how DiMaggio, the 56 game, hitting streak, like great one of the greatest all-time baseball players, right? But when we pull up Joe DiBaggio, the first two things I'm thinking of are the song and then Seinfeld.
Yes.
I was like, Joe DiMaggio.
Oh, yeah.
Joe DiMaggio doesn't dunk his donuts. Joe DiMaggio is not a dunker. I can hear Elaine saying it in my head. It's so funny. It's like the guy has played baseball all these years, but the two things that I remember are Joe DiMaggio, the Dunkin' Donuts, and the song. So, hey, Joey D, when you've made it, because I don't even think of baseball when I think of you now. And you're right, Barry. And it made me laugh when we were talking about this horse. This is why I'm not a trainer. I would get way too cute with stuff. Like what we're talking about with the horse like this. I would outthink myself way too often with trying to play the game instead of just horses are creatures of habit, and you never know when they're going well if you're going to be able to get them back to that. You know what I mean? So it's I think it's just simple. If you can just get horses back to the racetrack, keeping them healthy simply, that's probably the best method. And I wouldn't do that. I would just be I would try to do too much. And that's why I'm a gambler and not a horse trainer.
You have to really, honestly, look at the past performances. You have to think that the connections last time, they had to cash a bet there.
Absolutely.
On it,
Absolutely.
dropping down to 62.5
in that spot.
They
that
had,
was the spot.
Yeah, 6,250. I say 62.5 like it's.
I do too. I always say that one too. Yeah.
But yeah, they had to cash a bet, and they were like, all right, well, even if this horse, they were expecting the claim. I would think, and they were just like, we're just going to empty the pockets, and if somebody, for by any chance wants to claim this horse, that's fine, because we're going to cash the bet, get the purse, and move on. So this makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
I think this horse was way better than what he ran the last time as far as class. So I think he has a shot, because I think if the 2 gets pressed even a little bit, I think that horse folds.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this is a funny one, man. Yeah, it's funny to get inside your own head. I'm telling you already why I wouldn't be a good trainer, and I haven't ever trained a horse. I don't even know, but I can just tell you right now. I can just tell you right now as we move along.
I'd be the worst, because I'd go on interviews and stuff and actually tell them,
I'd be honest. No, me
I'd
too.
tell him he's not going to win today.
I'd just be no shot. This is a total we're not even trying. I just want to get some fitness into this horse.
And then I'd probably train all of one horse, and then
I know
we're gonna move him to somebody else, because
I know you have to be so patient. It's just we're talking about baseball, obviously a bunch. We're talking about Joe DiMaggio right now. It's the same thing when you live in a world where the best of the best win 25% of the time to 30% of the time, and that's Hall of Fame. That means that everybody else, even the best, are losing 75 to 80% of the time.
Well, that's why you have to get crafty and strike while the iron's hot. And I think
that's
they
why
kind of
we're in the no
overreached
chalk
here.
zone. You're right. You're
I
right.
think they overreached here.
You're right. It was Just
But
a
they
little.
cashed the bet, so I'm sure they're okay.
I was gonna say
all
they're
right
probably
with that.
still got a nice pocketbook and probably a nice Christmas for them coming up as we move to race number 8, I believe. Right, Matt? You've got one in the 8th race.
Yeah, I have one in the 8th, which is a 6 furlong maiden special weight, $70,000 for 2-year-olds. It's on the dirt.
You're not trying to tell me something with the 9 here, right?
No, I'm not.
Thank you. Okay,
I actually saw that
sure.
horse and I was like,
I
oh, that'd
wanna
be
make
funny if I picked it because we could have some
Okay.
fun with that.
Thank you. Thank you.
But no, there's a ton of first time starters here. And this is one, listen, if you're playing tomorrow, obviously it's an 11 race card. You only have to select 10 horses for your stable at Gulfstream Park. I totally understand if some people look at this race as the one they decide to skip because it's all first timers for the most part. But I wanted to use this just because I'm not sure what the turf situation is going to be on Saturday. So I just wanted to kind of be safe and you never know how that could kind of change things. And so I decided if I'm going to play this, I'm going to play obviously with a less expensive horse. So I ended up going with the 4, Collect This Money, 8-1 on the morning line. Only going to cost you $3,000 on stable duels. So might as well go for something below average in terms of your average stable duel costs, allow you to spend up in some other races a little bit more. And the thing about this horse and the thing about this race is interesting is there's no monsters in this race. Like there's no like Brad Cox or Todd Pletcher and Chad Brown. Like nobody has horses in this race. There's not even really many expensive horses in this race. Like the most expensive horse is actually the 15-1 horse. That's the number 2 horse, which is a Candy Ride horse that was $230,000 at the stale and clearly has not been showing that much to get placed at 15-1. And the works haven't been too overwhelming. And so, like I said, there's just not a lot in there in terms of like, oh, we have to avoid this monster. We have to avoid this horse. There's nothing in there like that. So getting back to the 4, which is actually a moderately priced horse in this field for $70,000. But this horse has just been, I mean, this is not a trainer that typically gets horses cranked up, but this horse looks ready to roll based on the last couple of workouts.
And what's hard is that this is a barn that's been like a newer barn over the last, 5 to 10 years. And so anyone that starts, like their numbers with first-time starters for a while are not going to be good.
Exactly.
And so this is a barn that I've always thought is very capable with the right type of horse winning early. There's just a lot of them that aren't going to win first time out. Most horses aren't. So your numbers are going to look not good with first-time starters. Yeah. I never feel like they're like, for example, let me try to explain it a better way. Carla Gaines is someone who never wins first time out. But like you know that she doesn't even try, and she can have like the best horse and it won't win first time out at all. And you know that, and it's just the way that she gets horses ready, the way that she trains them. For some other barns, it's not that case. They can get the right horse ready with their training regiment. It's just they don't get that kind of stock. Maybe they get horses that are route horses, or maybe they have claiming horses, or maybe they don't even have a bunch of first time starters, right?
Exactly. And when you're first starting out, owners are not going to start giving you the most precocious horses. Those are going to go to the bigger barns. And you're going to get horses that might need a little bit of work. But in this case, this horse clearly has speed. And the last, that Bullet Gate work in particular, I thought was really impressive, but also the 5 furlong work before that. Like I said, you look through the works. I mean, that's kind of all you can do with some of these first time starter races. And so in this case, if I'm going to make a play in this race, an 11 race card with only having to select 10 horses, I might as well go with something that's going to make me value on the morning line. And so Collect This Money, 8-1. I hope to collect a little bit of money, hopefully with a win bet here. Definitely like this 4 in race 8.
That is the number 4 in race 8, 3,000 in your stable dual lineups. A nice play there when you're putting together your Saturday lineups, or a nice play in any pick 4, pick 5 situations, or just a few bucks to win at that price. Let's move to a stakes race. In race number 9, it is a 2-mile stakes race, which we don't see.
Correction.
Often.
It's about 2 miles.
About 2 miles. It's not quite.
The best part. I just love the best part is about 2 miles. Like, just measure it the fuck off. Like,
I know, right? You're right.
Yeah,
you're absolutely right. I do love the about, which is just amazing. And it reminds me of like in football when they're putting when they're doing the first down marker.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It's like you got the guy out there who's just using his eyes. It's like, this is what we're doing right now. We got like a 65-year-old person out there who's like just giving it the eye test.
Yeah.
Like this
Like, looks good.
That's 2 spots back to the left and over 1 hump. Like, what? Come on. You're like, no, it was behind that rock right there on the side. We've got the about 2 mile Jerkins. And I tipped my hand on this one a little bit earlier when we were talking yesterday, because I actually like a horse who's in really nice form in here. And that's the number 11, Barberini. Barberini, first off, I'm a big fan of Delacroix too. I feel like I always want to say it like from the Green Mile, like Delacroix, like how they, how he says it very like that every time. Like I really want to, I love saying it. Anyways, it sounds kind of strange, but I really like using horses like Barberini in distance races like this. I like using sharp horses when they just send them long, because honestly, there's not really a division for races like this. There aren't 2 mile turf races. There's not like a bunch of horses that are like this. Heck, we really only have like a few 1.5 mile turf horses in the US right now. So we don't really have a lot of sample size when we have races like this. So I love a horse like Barberini, who's just sharp. He's in really nice form. And you say, hey, let's go take a shot in a stakes race where we can face Stakes Company. And at this level, what qualifies for a stakes horse is probably not the same at like a mile on the turf, right? Or a 1 1/8 miles, where there's just more depth and those overall are better horses. This horse has done like nothing wrong. Look at it. He's run 9 times in his career. His career debut wasn't good. And then since then, every other race has been good. He's won 5 of them. He's finished second in 1, and he's finished third the other 2 times. He's won 3 straight races. And what's nice right now is he's actually going to be going third start off the bench. So he could actually be set for a career best effort if he just takes one more small step forward. We haven't seen him go this far, but again, like I said, we don't know anyone that wants to go 2 miles. He's certainly bred to go a route of ground. And I don't, like, nobody in here scares me. There's no like monsters in these races like this going that long. Give me Barberini, the number 11. He's 8-1 on the morning line. He's sharp. He's stepping up a little bit right now. I like him in this spot. And
kind of breaking the weight too.
Yeah.
That's got to factor in a little bit in a 2 mile race, right?
Right. Going that long, carrying that much less weight, of course it's going to add up, right? That equals a few lengths at that, at that distance. Maddie, I think you said you also have one in this stakes race. Oh, I think you're muted.
I'm being a terrible coworker today and just muting myself on these
worries.
Zoom calls. And so
at least you're just muting yourself and like your clothes are still on. As long as
exactly.
Like,
I may or may not be wearing pajama pants, but that's neither here nor there.
So. So who knows? Right?
Exactly, very professional up top. But I'm actually right next door. I like the 12 a little bit here. Same value, 8-1 on the morning line, only going to cost you $3,000. This is Agitaire, the Kerry Byron horse, and this is a horse that actually I used in Stable Duel at the Fox Hills tournament that they had a couple of months ago.
That's so funny.
This was a horse that ran in one of the only non-hurdles race that day. And that was, you want to talk about yielding turf. I mean, I remember that because I live in this area, but I mean, it had been raining for like a week leading up to that race.
We didn't know if they were even going to race.
It was that touch and go. Yeah. And so this horse, this is the first time out from coming over to from Europe, and wins that race. Obviously, no timing, no speed figures, anything like that. But this horse put in a really nice work down at South Florida. Last time out, ran a 47-4 furlong work. I also love the way Kerry trains these horses. If you look at the work before that was a 1.5 mile work. She's also, she's got a 1.8 mile work in there on this horse.
You go from 1.5 miles and then 4 furlongs. in the next
Yeah.
one. That's just
So
great.
I mean, distance is not going to be a problem with this horse at all. And I just like what Carrie's doing with this horse. I like that she's
Sure.
kind of getting, kind of getting back in the game in South Florida. And I just think this horse might have a little bit of a run here, and especially coming over from Europe. You mentioned there are not a lot of American horses that have this type. There just aren't these races in the United States. And so the fact that this horse is accustomed to going longer, going 1.75 miles, going kind of that marathon distance over in Europe, presumably running against much better company. You see some
And
Group 3
much
races,
better.
things like that.
They were all in good form.
Yeah.
Like all of those horses were in tip-top shape. What was
Yeah.
it, 5 races in a row that he runs into a horse who was a next out winner?
Exactly. So no, and came from a very capable barn over in Europe and Ireland. So I just 8-1. I'll take a shot with this horse in a big field, knowing that this horse can absolutely do the distance. And I think had a smart work leading up to this.
That's the number 12. Matt and me are on a couple 8-1 shots right next door to each other in the 11 and the 12. And that is race number 9, stakes race on Saturday at Gulfstream Park. Let's continue along. We head to race number 10. Next, I think myself and Barry are both in this one.
I'm in this one as well.
So
we got
we
potential.
We got a shot. Barry, talk to us. Who are we looking at?
So this is an option claimer 25,000 going 6 on the main, and I ended up on number 5,
Ooh,
Luddington.
Not for me.
not for me, but all right.
We're
Good
in
horse
different-
though.
We're in different ways here. To sell us on the 5.
All right, so you see these if you go back to early 2022 and you see races in February and March, you could just put lines through both of those races. March 12th, February 9th. Just for whatever reason, I think that horse was just not in the right spot. Ended up running into some pretty decent horses. Then from there, and actually before that, the horse was kind of sharp. Ran in the Claiming Crown last year in the 1.8 mile, and I think that was the wrong distance. Then those 2 races that I told you to cross out, those were on sloppy tracks. Horse doesn't seem to like wet tracks. I mean, has won on a wet track, but I don't think that's that horse's forte. Get him away from that. All of his races are comparable with anybody in this race. I like the fact that he came off the bench from August, that 3 month, almost exactly 3 months, and ran good. I really don't see too much in here to beat. There's enough speed that this horse doesn't, it won't be on the lead, but will be close up enough to finish it off at the top of the stretch. And it's just one of those things where the horses just has to be in the right position and be able to finish off. And I think Luca Panici will do that.
We're looking at Luddington, who is 10-1 on the morning line. Will only cost you 1,000 in your stable dual lineup. Who's the play for you in race 10, Matty?
So I'm on the 3, Celestial Gaze. Is that where you are as well?
We both go on
All right.
Celestial Glaze.
Yeah. So this is it. I agree with Barry. This is an interesting race, and this goes to a point you always make, Gino, which is even if we're on different horses, we're attacking this race for a reason. For me, this is a really fascinating race because 4 of the 8 runners are coming back from a layoff in this race, which for me, just kind of a lot of times, unless there's just overwhelming trainer stats that these horses get cranked up coming back from a layoff, or that the horse has demonstrated the ability to run well off a layoff, I'm just going to kind of pass a lot of times. So the 1, 6, 7, and 8 are all coming back from a layoff. Meanwhile, Celestial Gaze is a horse that's just in really consistent and solid form. I just feel like this horse doesn't really run a bad race. And I just think, 7 for 9 in the money at Gulfstream Park, has been running at this level the last few times out and running really well. And so, from a speed figure standpoint, just hitting those kind of like mid to low 80s Beyer speed figures, horse should be easily able to handle the distance with no problem, as it's stretched out and gone longer before. So I just thought this horse just made a lot of sense at 6-1 for only $5,000 in a race where I just think there's going to be some horses tiring late, maybe that aren't going to be quite cranked up and ready to go. And I just think this is a horse that you're catching at the right time to some extent. This is a horse that's just kind of in good form in a race where some might still need another race under their belt.
Yeah, I like horses like this where you can tell the story of his entire career. This was a horse who was a Todd Pletcher horse, who was a son of Frosted. He was supposed to be a better horse than he was in his first couple races. But what happens when you're in a barn like that, you don't really have a whole lot of time to show yourself, because those big barns have so many good horses that if you don't show it in the first couple, they don't really have room for you. I know it's unfortunate, but they don't have stalls there. They're going to drop you in class, and you don't get a lot of chances because, they have the best of the best. Someone like Todd Pletcher is literally dealing with all of the best stock. He could pick and choose, really. Like, he has that kind of option. And so after the first couple races, this horse just kind of started to figure it out. He dropped all the way down to a maiden 12-5, and then he starts to build up some confidence. He finishes a good third, comes back and he runs fourth. And then we start to really see some improvement. So, middle of May, end of May, much better effort. Then he wins. And he starts to the light bulb goes on there. Okay, so he gets his victory. He comes right back and he wins. And what I love is that the wins were in different ways. He won on the front end, and then he came right back and he showed that he can sit and come from off the pace. So he's in excellent form. And now let's look at his last 3 races in a row. First, he runs into C Trident. And anytime I hear Trident, I just think of Anchorman.
Yeah, Rick, Trident.
You have a Trident out there? I think you killed a man. He just says that.
See, we wouldn't stand a chance in that fight because there's only 3.
I know. I was gonna say
we're not a news team.
I know we're not quite the team. I know. I was gonna say. I mean, I'm feisty, but
we might need to draft like Jake from State Farm. We might need to draft a few other people.
We gotta get like an Andrew Champagne in here with us too, and maybe some of the guys. Like we need to combine with another show.
Chuck.
Yeah, there we go. We get Chuck Simon in the mix.
Yeah, we need Chuck. Get Chuck in there. He's
absolutely.
You can move some people around.
So C Trident is sharp. Like, he's had a really nice year. This was who Celestial Glaze ran into on September the 16th. C Trident comes out of that race to win his next start and then finish second. And he's in his last 5, 3 wins, 2 seconds. And he's actually crossed the wire first and been DQ'd in another race. So, no shame in losing to that horse or in finishing third in that field. Following that race, he comes back on October the 20th. And in this race, he again runs into a really sharp horse named the Distractor. Which is a funny name. It just makes me laugh. Yeah. 3, and this is a horse who's won 3 in a row. Look at the Distractor's last 8 starts. 6 wins, and his 2 seconds are by a nose and a head. Like, this horse is like half a length away from having won 8 consecutive races. And following that race, Celestial Glaze runs into Frosted Armor, who again is a sharp horse. We look at Frosted Armor, who has won back-to-back races, and Frosted Armor has won 3 of the last 5 with a second beaten ahead. Like, he's close to having won 4 out of his last 5 races. So, you look at this horse, Celestial Glaze, Matt, who finally started to figure things out, but then he just ran into some tough horses in tough spots. It wasn't like he got trounced in those races either. He showed up, he finished third, and second, running well in all of them. He's got a little bit of versatility to him. I don't think he needs to be as far back as maybe like Time Form might think he will be in this race, or it may suggest. I think he can sit closer and have a little bit more, like mid-pack towards positional speed.
I think so too. And I think that was a great job running through those last few races and just showing that he's been running into some buzzsaws to some extent. And that's what, when I was talking about, horses coming back from layoffs, like, he's not running into any of those this time. Like, there's no buzzsaws. So there's really no excuse. Like, if he doesn't win this time, then maybe you go, all right, maybe this horse just finishes underneath a lot and just, that's just kind of what this horse is, which the beauty is at 6-1 in Stable Duel, that can still be a very useful horse to use finishing second. But I just think this race is really set up for this horse to run well and to win. So definitely like Celestial Glaze here.
So what is your assessment of the 7?
The 7.
Nitrous
Hold on a
Channel.
second.
Absolute horse that I'm trying to beat, right? I mean, just like in this spot, he can he can absolutely win, and I will keep an eye on him for his next start because he showed a lot of ability. But yeah, this is the type of horse who I think like he's a Ricky Bobby, right? He's either first or last in this race. I feel like, and to me, I mean, in Stable Duel, definitely not. But like, if I guess what's hard is like if you're planning to pick 4 or pick 5, what would your approach be with this horse, Barry?
Oh, I'm not using him at all. I
Yeah.
mean, I'd have to think that based on his 2 running lines and where this isn't the spot they really want.
No.
Yeah.
You know, they have bigger fish down the road that they're looking at. So if there's any time that he could get beat, it's tomorrow.
Yeah, I also didn't like the fact his blinkers on too, coming off this long of a layoff. I mean, it's one thing if it was like a 3 or 4 month layoff. I mean, you're looking at like almost a 9-month layoff here, and so it's just like the combination of things. I agree with you, Barry. I think there's bigger fish to fry for this horse. So this was the one.
And I think you can even
skip.
kind of see with the work tab that
Yeah.
it's almost
awfully slow
this-
and long,
Yeah.
steady, trying to
they're
build
gonna-
some stamina.
And I think
Yeah.
they may try to like use this race versus like maybe I don't feel all that confident about his chances as a win candidate in here as maybe like a stepping stone moving forward. So Nitrous Channel will be 6-5. We're taking a swing against Nitrous Channel. I've got one more at Gulfstream in the bailout. Barry, you're in the bailout also, right? No bailout. Just me. I'm the one bailing things
You're
out
the
today.
You're gonna bail us out.
Before
You
we
got
head
us.
on
You
over
got us.
to Remington. And I told you earlier that there were a couple horses that are not like my typical horses. And this is one of them. Like I can't remember using a horse like this who's 0 for 20, 0 for 22 with 8 seconds and 5/3 on the win end. But there is not very much speed in this race at all. And if you look at the rest of the field, just not a whole ton of speed. And then you got Jerry here, who he's actually been on the lead going 5.5 in sub 22 fractions. In his last race, he didn't get the lead. It looked like his last couple, they were kind of trying to sit a little bit more. They're not going to do that here because there's just no other speed in this race. And if this horse gets the lead, they may be tough to run down. Obviously, at 0 for 22 with 8 seconds and 5/3, it's really hard to trust a horse like this. So I wouldn't want to take, if I'm betting him to win, anything less than 5-1 in this race. I think at 5-1, he could still represent good value, getting the lead, being clear. It's just, how much can you trust this horse? But he's best on the turf. I think this is, go time for him. They're going to send him hard. Whose turn? Jerry's turn. I'm hoping in a maiden race like this where there's just not the only other speed horse in this race is the one Winging It, and Winging It showed speed in his first 2. And then he went to a long layoff. And since coming back from a layoff, he hasn't shown any speed. He hasn't shown anything. So he may not have that speed at all anymore. And if he can't break from the rail, there's really nobody else in here to put the pressure on Jerry's turn. I think he will have the lead. I think he can take him as far as he will. And it's going to be nervous time turning for home when he's got like a length lead and you're like, you're just kind of waiting for him to start to come back to horses. But Jerry's turn should be the one to catch in the 11th and final on Saturday at Gulfstream Park. So good luck there at Gulfstream on Friday. Good luck at Gulfstream on Saturday. As we turn the page, let's talk a little Remington Park. I can't recall how many times Remington Park has joined our parties here. Maybe once or twice. Maybe.
I think last year at the Springboard Mile.
Yeah, it might have been Springboard Mile, or maybe there may be 1 or 2 other big days. But what's fun is that since it is a big day for them, Stable Duel has a Remington Park contest, a $25 contest with over $1,500 in cash prizes guaranteed there for you. So, of course, I'm diving in. And I'm looking a little bit later on in the card. Barry has horses in races 10 and 11. Matt, you are looking at races
the late
10,
pick 3.
11, and 12. And I'm looking at races 9, 11, and 12. And that's because all the stakes races are towards the back of the card. And the big races are towards the end of the card. So first one that we will be talking about will be, Matt, run us through all of the Saturday contests one more time to remind everyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Remington Park, because I have race 9.
So on Saturday, there's a few different, obviously there's 2 contests at Gulfstream Park. There is a $40 3 entry limit with $2,000 in guaranteed purse money to be distributed. There's also a $50 double up contest with, again, a limit of 3 entries. So those are both at Gulfstream Park. There's also, for people who might want to spend a little bit less, there's a $10 contest at Tampa Bay Downs.
Nice.
That is going to be a 3 entry limit as well, $600 in guaranteed prices. I would not be surprised if it goes up and over that, though. A lot of people love playing those $10 games. So if you get more than $600 in the pot starts to increase and more guaranteed money and money gets distributed out. And then, as you mentioned, the Remington Park contest, $25, $1,500 guaranteed. So yeah, a nice slate of races for and contests for Stable Duel on Saturday.
And I'm going to move to race number 9 at Remington Park, which is a $100,000 stakes race. They'll go a mile on the dirt. And just looking at the major players in this race, Olivia Twist is going to be one of the short prices. She's really fast. She won her last race by 15 lengths, but she went 25 and change to the first quarter, right? So she was crawling on the front end. And, you know, you look around the rest of this field. So the 2, Bonnie View is pretty quick and is coming out of sprint races. This will be the farthest she's ever gone. Olivia Twist, we know she wants to be right on the lead. Lucky Deputy, she can sit a little bit, but she's also going to be going the farthest distance she's ever been. It would not be surprising to see her even more forwardly placed in here. Faith Alone, she wants to be right on the front end. She can sit a little bit, but I think as the distances go farther, like we saw at 7 furlongs, she's more likely to be on the front end, which she was. We have, are we saying Demi or Demi? Like, am I thinking like Demi Moore or are we saying Demi? You know, I'm not sure here. But this is one that was a closer sprinting, and the 7 appropriated funds, a little bit of versatility with this one. And then you've got the do you want to dance on the outside, who can probably sit. But there isn't really like a true closer in here, except for the one, Jokes on Blue. And if you look at Jokes on Blue, she actually ran into Olivia Twist. And I think a lot of people may look at her and say, okay, Olivia Twist beat her by 15. Well, yeah, Olivia Twist was able to get out front, get really soft fractions. And then at that point, slow things down and have plenty left in the tank. The circumstances for Olivia Twist that day were as ideal and as perfect as they possibly could be. And maybe she's just better than Jokes on Blue, but this will actually be a great spot for Jokes on Blue to save ground and get some pace to run at. Look at this filly's 4 races. Her debut was at Ellis Park. She ran well. She was a winner. Coming out of that race, they took a shot against Stakes Company right here at Remington. She ran very well that day. She finished 3rd. Then she went over to Churchill, and it was a sloppy racetrack. Easy race to just put a line right through. We can't even get a gauge for it if it's on a sloppy track. And then in her last start, she got caught behind a horse who got loose on the lead and opened up by 15 lengths. It all makes sense. She's going to save all the ground from the inside, and I'm the most confident about her closing in here. Does that mean she's going to absolutely win this race? No, but I know that she should be able to come closing when very few other horses in this race want to do that. So I think she's picking them up late at the least in here. 5-1, Jokes on Blue in the Trapeze, which is a $100,000 stakes race there on Saturday night over at Remington Park. So 5-1 in our Stable Duel lineups. That'll cost you $6,000. That's slightly over the average of what you're looking for when you build your lineup. So if you play 5 and 6-1 shots along the way, you'll have plenty of opportunity to cover yourselves, and that's sort of the build you're looking for. But we're looking a little later into the 10th race, and I think both of you have plays in race number 10. So Barry, she's all in, $100,000 stakes race, 1 mile and 70 for the fillies. Talk to us about race number 10 at Remington on Saturday.
Yeah. Remington. Yeah. Remington. Gulfstream runs at night. That's crazy.
I know, right?
That would be crazy. South Florida at night. I would sign me up for that
say.
action. That would be fun.
Yeah, I that'd be really nice.
It's like the highlight back in the day, right? It's like I want a camera on the grandstand and what the people are doing, because there would be some crazy stuff happening.
Yeah.
Oh man,
that's what I'm saying.
I ended up on number 4, Family Time,
It's a
Now,
really good horse. Yeah.
if you see this horse's past performances, so the daily race and form ones start November 25th, 2021. And if you take this horse's races in three race segments, you can see that this horse has improved from that point going forward, and even off the layoff. So got laid off in June, came back on September 1st, and it was an improved effort. Then what I was saying before, how you see horses that do this all the time, they come out, run a race that's similar to what they did before they went on the layoff. Then there's a jump up, and he stepped up. His Byron number went up, and he got claimed that day. But ever since then, he's just steadily progressed. He's razor sharp coming into this race for a really hot barn, hot jockey, the whole nine. There's not really much to beat in here. I mean, you could say the favorite looks okay, but I think that's just a connections kind of thing.
Yeah, the one
Not
is a
for the
little-
fact that this horse is just so much better than these horses that they should be 6-5. I think it's just it's Brad Cox, it's Godolphin. They're having a good year, of course, just like they did last year, but drawing the rail can't be that good of a thing. This horse is stretching out, who's never won at this distance or any distance going, over 6 furlongs or 6.5. Why not try against that horse here?
Yeah.
So Famed is the one we're trying to beat. And Barry has a play on the 4 Family Time, who is 6-1 on the morning line.
Yep.
Who struck your fancy in this one, Maddie?
So I really liked Family Time as well. I think this horse is very logical, makes a lot of sense, and I definitely took a long look about giving this one out. Ultimately, I ended up I'm going to give out the horse that finished second in that race, and so that's the number 7 horse, which is Haley's Melody at 12-1 on the morning line. It was really just a matter of degree. I liked the 4 a lot, and here's this 7 that just got beat by the 4 last time out, and I'm getting 12-1, only going to cost me $750 on Stable Duel. This is a horse that just interesting running lines. I mean, we talk about like a muddied up racing form. This is a prime example of it. Just a lot of lines, a lot of turf, a lot of dirt, a lot of switching surfaces, a lot of different levels, etc. And so, but this horse is in kind of its best form right now, and seems to have really taken to the dirt the last several times out, has been running its best races, and gave a run at the Remington Park Oaks. That didn't work out that well, but outside of that, this horse has been running pretty well on dirt at Remington Park. So 3 for 6 in the money, 2 for 3 in the money at this distance. Last couple of times out, you see that increasing buyer speed figure. I like that this horse is second off the layoff. The other thing that I think is interesting to me is there's not a ton of other speed in this race. This horse should be the early speed. The only other speed is the next horse to its outside, which is the 8 Sunday Flashback, who's run at a mile twice before, but is kind of more of a traditional sprinter. But if you look, the fractions, if you start going past the first quarter, you start looking at the half-mile fractions, 3/4 fractions, they're all very comparable. So I don't think that it would be, I don't think that's going to be a speed duel necessarily up front. And so I think that this 7 can get a pretty good trip. And the fact that this horse has had success at this distance over this surface at 12-1 to a horse, like I said, lost to a horse in the 4 that I really like in this spot as well. I just think this is a really effective value play in the 7 for Haley's Melody at 12-1. Like I said, only going to cost you $750 on Stable Duel. So if you're looking to save some money, you need to use favorites maybe in some other races. This is a nice way of balancing all of that out.
Haley's Melody is a very, very quick filly, and what's nice is you get a good run for your money like this in Stable Duel. You know where she's going to be.
There's another horse, the 5 Run Sloopy Run, that really caught my eye too. So I think this race is kind of a spread race if you're playing multis.
Yeah, agreed.
I just Famed could win, but
I'm not going to spend $9,800 at Stable Duel on this horse.
No way.
For sure.
Yeah,
no way.
Yeah.
Let's move to race number 11. A couple more races to discuss on the Saturday Remington Park card. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays to everyone out there. Thanks so much for hanging out with us on your Friday morning. We will be back next week on Friday before the holidays, and we'll have some Santa Anita to talk about next week, because Santa Anita will be opening up and they have their traditional opening day, the day after Christmas. So Gulfstream and Santa Anita will be a major focus starting next week for us for the foreseeable future, for the coming months. Let's talk about the 11th race here. And I'm looking at the number 2 in this one, guys. I'm looking
Same
at
here.
number 1 dude, as
Yep.
he kind of what I was talking about with Jokes on Blue earlier. This race, he should actually be able to benefit from other speeds putting pressure on each other.
Yep.
Because he's been unfortunately just a little bit unlucky in his last couple races, because he lost to that something on October 21st. And when we look at what happened in that race, just kind of quickly, on October 21st, that something went right to the lead and went wire to wire. Then in his next start, he lost to Hello Hot Rod, who just went wire to wire. And, we got a pretty strong wrestling exacta in this race, Matt.
We do, yeah.
With Rowdy Roddy Piper, and then our friend, the old veteran, on this day, I see clearly, Edge, the rated R superstar. So we got the wrestling exacta here. But I'm on the Deuce number 1 dude, because now, instead of those races where we've seen him in his last couple, where he has to loom up, chasing lone speed, and then by the time he gets there, they've got another gear. This time, when he looms up, those speed horses should be tired. They should have already been battling with each other. And I think that's when they're going to fade. And so this is a horse who loves Remington Park. He's in very nice form. He seems like he's improving too. He comes off of a good effort last time out. And he has the style, the running style that I'm really looking for in here, where he can sit right behind that group of leaders.
Yeah, so this is my pick in this race as well. I just think, looking at the favorites, Barry, you always point this out, part of our job is poking holes in the favorites and being more critical of those with the short price. And for me, I just think, as much as I love the name and as much as I love the horse, Rated R Superstar, I just think his best days are behind him now. This horse is almost 10 years old.
You gotta, you can
hard
play
for me
him now moving forward, maybe in races at Oaklawn when he's like 8-1. Right?
Yeah, that's about it. And even then, I would maybe have some doubts. Cato River is coming back from a long layoff and has kind of this far outside post. So I'm going to kind of toss Cato River. And so then you kind of look at what else is left. And this horse just makes a lot of sense. And I think this is a horse that, like you said, is going to be able to chase, that speed, but do it more effectively, and is kind of coming into its best form right now. So I just thought 6-1, $5,000 in Stable Duel, your average cost. I just think this too makes a ton of sense. So number 1 dude for me is my number 1 pick in this race.
Are both on the dude, the number 1 dude, at 6-1 on the morning line. Barry, I believe you also have a play in here too, right?
Of course, yeah. You just trashed my horse for like.
Oh, nice.
That's okay.
No.
But that's okay.
I love it.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
I like the 7. That's something.
Okay, well,
okay.
let me say this: of the horses that we talked about, what is ideal about that something is he does not need the lead. Right.
And
He
that
got
was
the
my
lead.
angle, because like Cattle River, it's like the horses run gaudy numbers against horses that are pretty decent.
And he gets the perfect trip in all of those races. He'll sit right off
a lot,
and then just crush. Anytime he's tested,
an interesting spot that this horse is here. Yeah,
I know. He seems like one of those horses where I don't want him in a fight, Barry. You know what I mean? He's got to prove that he can beat other good horses under circumstances that are not the most perfect for him, where he just sits right off of another horse and then just is able to move to the lead whenever he wants.
Right, and I think Rated R Superstar is the polar opposite, and he's going to have a tough time closing here. So I kind of took the horse that's probably going to sit in between, because the way I assess number 1 dude is I looked at him really hard too. And there just seems to be way too much speed, because I don't think Cattle River does well when he's not on the lead.
No.
And I think there's enough of it just to give him, occupy him enough to get beat. And I think that's something's going to sit a great trip and hopefully get it done. He should be all of that 8-1. I don't really see him getting bet too much here. So I'm going to go with that. I like him a lot in this spot, actually.
Yeah, he's very honest. And in the race where he beat number one dude, he was able to get the lead over number one dude in that race. But honestly, like you said, the difference between that something is like in this race, he's not as fast as Caddo River or Hot Rod. So he won't be on the lead here. Like he's not going to be, or Eastside Cool. They're all faster than him. He won't be battling it out with them. And so that versatility could really come into play here. And I have no problem using him in any exotics there. That is a very fair price on that something of 8-1. So let's get to the feature, the Springboard Mile. I've got one in the closeout, and I believe Matt does also.
I do.
And this is a good race, Matt.
It's a really nice race.
And honestly, there are a couple horses that I'm not going to be using in my lineup that are nice horses, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Echo again, who
very nice horse,
earned a 94 Beyer speed figure and had all the buzz as being one of the top 2-year-olds after winning that debut. And then Giant Mischief is a legit horse too. Like that was a really, really good win, beating a nice Baffert horse on November the 4th on the Breeders' Cup undercard.
Yep.
So like those two are legitimate talents, but we're probably not playing them in this race in a stable duel situation.
No, I mean,
price, right?
Giant Mischief's at least a little bit more playable if you want to potentially double up in this, because it's only going to be 8,000. And so if you like double up with a horse, like I think some of the ones that we might recommend, you could still stay under the $5,000 limit if you combine those two. But yeah, Echo again, coming off the layoff, coming off that misfire at the Iroquois, the inside rail. I'm just going to pass on that horse entirely. The horse I ended up on was the 4, Little Sweet Thang. Is that
you and me, Maddie? This weekend, we're all over the place.
Oh man,
this horse. I mean, 12-1. Sign me up. Like just $750. Are you kidding me? Like, I'll gladly take this horse because you just draw a line through that second effort on the slop on a sealed track. Just don't even worry about it. What you see otherwise is this horse makes that massive progression from breaking its maiden to to that allowance win, going from a 63 to an 87 Beyer speed figure. That 87 Beyer speed figure holds up really well compared to what everybody else is bringing to this race. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So we're watching the race here, and the horse we're looking at is the number 5, Little Sweet Thing, who is going to be the 4 in the Springboard Mile. And what I liked about this race was in his debut, he wins right on the lead. And then in his second start, it's a sloppy racetrack. So it's like you said, you put a line through it. We don't really know what his particular style is. But in here, he shows me, look, I can get a good start. He was close up, but you could see they chose to sit back in this spot. They chose to sit fourth in a good spot, right? You're in the clear. You let these 3 horses kind of go up and put a little pressure on each other, and you can wait. And I loved seeing that this horse, in just his 3rd start as a 2-year-old, had this kind of patience.
Absolutely.
They could tell him to relax and then press the button, and he goes. And not only does he go and move up to the lead, Matt, but a lot of times when you see a horse make a middle move like that, they kind of hang or they stop, especially if it's their first start going long. This was his first start going long. He makes the big move all the way up to the lead, and now
he's going wide doing it.
Here comes the counter from American Outlaw, which a lot of times, counter punch from the horse that's on the inside, saving all the ground. They fight back. But you know what? No, he's got another gear when they ask him again. And now he's able to win a stretch battle. And he has to put this horse away and draw off, which I think this horse learned a lot in this race. And he showed me something, the way he was able to patiently sit, then flip the switch and move right up into contention. And then, like we were just kind of talking about with Caddo River, then at the top of the lane, this horse got hooked in a fight.
Yeah.
He was in the gym, right? Yep. And he's bobbing and he's weaving and he's bobbing. He's up and down. But you know what? He took a punch and he came right back. And that's what I like to see.
Absolutely. No, there's so much to like about what this horse did in that race. And you could even see Quinones wasn't even really, I mean, it's crazy for a stretch duel. Quinones wasn't even really going that hard at him there at the end. He knew he had that other horse put away and he knew what he had underneath him. And it was a hand ride the whole way. And so it was, to me, it was just a really impressive race. And I think the morning line just reflects the fact that there probably overvaluing these outside shooters coming in because they're from big barns like Asmussen, like Cox,
Yep.
and these local horses that have experience at Remington Park, going the mile, doing the distance, are kind of undervalued right now. And so from a stable duel standpoint, I absolutely jump on that 6, a little sweet thing for only $750. And I'll even say that the horse that finished second that day, American Outlaw, at 15-1, is also probably a pretty viable play as well.
Sure,
For only $500. So
that was his first start going long. He's
exactly,
going to
and
be forwardly placed. Now they take the blinkers off.
Yeah,
and if you were kind of hitting on this too. Like, let's look at it's not always this simple as just comparing speed figures, but if you, in a simple sense, you can do that. Just to get a feel for if a horse should stack up. And so let's say Echo again with his 94, and you've got Giant
5.
Mischief with his 95, right?
Yep.
Those two obviously stand out above the rest. The next best buyer in the field is Little Sweet Thing.
Yep.
So this, if you're looking to go against those two horses, or if you're looking for another horse who represents value, this is the best of the rest as far as what they've run. We talked about how you can put a line right through that middle race. There's some speed. The horse can sit. Check the box of winning locally at this racetrack, winning, going a mile. Man, you could do a lot worse for a 12-1 shot.
Oh my!
Than for this horse, right?
Yeah. There's some 12-1 shots that are rough, and this one makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's funny. This is a race where I can see myself actually doubling up in a couple of these last stakes races.
Yeah,
I've done this with some bigger days on Stable Duel where I'll just play like the last 7 races or something like that, and double up in like 3 of them, and just ignore the undercard almost entirely.
There's a couple vulnerable chalks that, especially like this. Okay, win or lose, these two horses are going to be so overbet in this race, the 1 and the 5, win or lose. And they'll be so heavily owned in Stable Duel because people see those big figures and they, like you said, they see the top barns.
Yeah.
And you got to try to zig when everyone else zags. That's what's the name of the game. As we finish up here, and we wish everyone a very Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays as we get closer. We're still, 9 days away or so. As you've seen me posting a lot of my modeling pictures now up on social media. My mom is very into Christmas and has always been. And my mom was a kindergarten teacher also, so she was really into Christmas a lot. She would get a lot of gifts from the kids, and so she has some of the worst looking sweaters, t-shirts, hats, like stuff that is so awful and horrible. But I'm going to be wearing it all over the next couple weeks. I've got my Grinch and Max t-shirt here on today. I've got the Dodgers Santa cap. I've got all sorts of different stuff because if I'm not going to wear it right now, I'm not going to wear it at any point of the rest of the year. So I might as well throw it on for the next couple of weeks because then it goes right back into that box and it builds up dust for the next 10 months of the year. So it's Christmas. I love it. I've got all my movies on the queue in the background. I'm going to go today and I'll do the Home Alones. I'm going to try out that new Christmas Story. Also, there's that. I don't know if you've seen have either of you seen it?
I haven't seen it, but I saw the
previews for it. I think it's on HBO Max. So I'm going to try
Ralphie.
it. The older Ralphie goes back to mourn the loss of his father. But, and then the one that I just watched the other day for anyone that's looking for maybe like a newer kind of cool one, it's called 8-Bit Christmas. It's on HBO Max. And it's very much like a Goonies type movie. It's cool. Neil Patrick Harris narrates it, and he tells the story of when he was a kid and his quest to get a Nintendo in the 80s. So it's really cool. Like his parents won't let him get one because all the local parents think a Nintendo is going to make a kid crazy. So he's trying to go through all this stuff to sell wreaths, and him and his friends. It's really good if you're looking for something new, and it's got a pretty big budget too. I like different Christmas movies, but the Hallmark ones, I can't do those. Like they're not quite big budget enough for me. They're a little cringy for me. My dad, Mr. McCullough, he does a few of those, but that's a tale.
So many.
I know, and they're all the same.
Yeah, that's what they seem like.
The name is all the same. It's like I saw the other day when I was scrolling through. There's a Ghosts of Girlfriends Past. Then there's a Ghost of Christmas Girlfriend. This is like one slightly different word that's thrown into the title. I was like comparing the ketchup. I'm doing the Mr. Burns thing. you know,
Boo
up everyone.
earns.
Boo earns, right? I think about that now every time I think of Elon Musk and I see him out there. Boo earns. They're not booing you. They're just oh, I don't want to get banned from Twitter though, so I better shut up. As we finish up, we have Gulfstream for you for Friday. For Saturday, we have Remington Park for you. I'm going to be diving into those contests. Make sure to give these fellas a follow. They are great to talk to interact with. And the one thing that I can vouch for Matt, for Barry, for myself, we love to chat with all of you out there. If you have a question about something, if you want to share a comment with us, we'll tell you. If we think you're wrong, we'll tell you. But we'll go back and forth with you too. So we love to chat with everyone out there, and we know there's so much great content out there. Barry does great work with Chuck on Going in Circles. Matt does stuff with Trust the Profits and all sorts of other different places. And we know there are great podcasts, great shows. We appreciate that you come and hang out with us here every Friday morning. And I always love hanging out with my buddies, Matt and Barry. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining us. Let's go from a couple of my friends now to one of my old friends, Joey Cleveland, the first guy I met summer before a freshman year of high school in a soccer camp. And one of the reasons why Joey and I started talking, we were singing Lifehouse, hanging by a moment. And it's so funny. And now I'm thinking about this for Joey. We were like humming the song, and then it was like we both started singing it together. I'm falling even more in love with you. Well, let's finish up with Joey Cleveland and our Stable Duel anthem.
Better, you want to spread your pony, now they